All right, thanks for bearing with me. I hopefully, I don't want to jinx it, but it doesn't seem like I have a full-on cold. I must have caught like a 12-hour bug or something. I mean, after some medicine and a couple of naps and sleep, it seems like I'm doing better. But, after I finish recording this, I'm going to eat me some soup just to be on the safe side. The reason I'm behind the mic when I said I wasn't going to do it at all this weekend is because there were a couple of comments on, I think it was either the video I did about Jeffrey signing the papers or are Veronica's plans about to fall through. And somebody made a good point. It's like anytime it seems like Jeffrey is growing a pair, something happens and he ends up acting like a wimp again. And I really did love that comment. It was really funny. And I wanted to do a video comparing two characters. And somebody even mentioned about Benny. It's like, I don't like what they're doing with Benny. They're writing him to be a complete idiot and a jerk. So I wanted to do this video to ask the question, who is the bigger mama's boy? Is it Benny or is it Jeffrey? The reason I bring up Benny is because, well, he's an overprotective son, and Melissa was like, still live at home with your mom. Now, I don't fault Benny for living with Hannah, because if you remember way back in season 1, it was mentioned that Benny actually did move out. This was before the show started now. But he didn't move too far away from where Hannah was. The only reason he moved back in with Hannah was due to the fact that when she fell with breast cancer, the doctor bills started piling up. She obviously couldn't go to work for a little while. So that's why the bills, if you go back to season 1 and look at a lot of the episodes, there's always the scenes where, after working at the Crier house, Hannah would come home and there's always bills stacked up either on the table, or I believe one time, Hannah was in her bed and she fell asleep. Benny came in there to wake her up, and the bed was literally covered with bills. And Benny was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Well, I was up, going through these bills." Well, you shouldn't be worrying about that. So yeah, Benny actually took it upon himself to move back in to help his mom. So that's why Benny hasn't been, I guess you could say, leaving to do his own thing. And if anything, remember, he invited Hannah to move into his house, the one that Candace bought him, even before Quincy came and destroyed her house with the car. So technically speaking, Benny wasn't about living in that house by himself. He wanted to take Hannah with him. But, things worked out where they lost the houses and Catherine gave Hannah this one. That's why Benny is where he is right now. So in terms of Benny living with his mom, there are reasonable circumstances as to why that's a thing. In terms of Jeffrey, well, hard to say. He had that apartment. Everything was down to Veronica, because back in season 2, when after he revealed that he was coming out of the closet, Veronica cut off his phone, his credit cards. I believe she kicked him out of the apartment too. That's why he was staying with Amanda and Candace. And it wasn't until he agreed to do what she wanted that she reactivated everything. And then it got to the point where even Melissa moved into the apartment with all of her stuff, taking Jeffrey, just taking everything. Oh, sorry about that, a little congested. Just taking everything from him. So when it comes down to it, Benny actually, due to finances, was trying to help out his mom, and due to her losing her house, his house being foreclosed on, that's why they're together in Catherine's house. When it comes to Jeffrey, well, he was working at the rehab facility, which is strange because he hasn't worked. Again, it goes back to my video about, do these characters ever work? He told David he would go back to school, finish his degree, and have his own thing. I mean, he even told David, he's like, look, don't worry about me. I got money saved up. I'll be okay. But I don't know. It's hard to tell. Let me just put it this way. In terms of the typical mama's boy, I feel like Benny has more of those characteristics in terms of, if there's any man sniffing around my mom, then I'm going to defend her. It's like, no, you ain't. Yeah, it is a bit annoying. It's like, you're a grown man, she's a grown woman. But at the same time, that's typical mama boy behavior. With Jeffrey, I wouldn't even call it mama's boy. It's like literally acting like a toddler whenever Veronica comes to call him. And even when you try to stand up to her, she ends up putting you back into that mental state of a 5-year-old with his hand caught in the cookie jar. But the thing about Benny is also the fact that when you go back to season 1, he actually tried to set up Hannah on a blind date because Hannah did the same thing to him. Who was it? Darcy, the nice girl from the church who's now Marcy on If Loving You Is Wrong. So in retaliation, he set her up with Tony from the church, who turned out to be, well, his father. Now it's like if there's any man that's even within 3 inches of Hannah, Benny is ready to bark like a rabid dog. So it's hard to tell because they still haven't addressed the whole his behavior has changed ever since he came out of the coma. That's why it's hard to really rank where Benny's intelligence is. It's kind of all over the place. They really are. They're as inconsistent with Benny's intelligence and behavior as they are with Veronica's personality traits, between being the simple bitch and the cold-hearted attorney slash mother slash crazy soon-to-be ex-wife. So it really is difficult to pinpoint which one is the mama's boy, when really you have Benny acting like a boy, but then Jeffrey's acting like a toddler. So I really can't choose. When I first got the concept of the video, I thought it would have been, oh man, it's Jeffrey all day, every day. But when you really get down to the nitty gritty, it really is difficult to pinpoint who's who. So I'll leave it up to you. Who do you think is the bigger mama's boy? Is it Jeffrey or is it Benny?